There are nights when silence feels louder than thunder. The room is dark, the body is heavy, and the heart aches with unspoken weight. In that stillness, when strength is gone and all you can do is lie down, a question rises. Does God hear me here? Some say prayer belongs on bended knees, hands folded neatly, words flowing with order and strength. But life is not always orderly, nor is the soul always strong. Sometimes prayer escapes as a whisper through tears on a pillow, or as a groan too deep for words, while staring at the ceiling. In those moments, it is easy to wonder if heaven listens to the fragile cries that rise from weary places. Yet Scripture paints a different picture. The God who shaped the stars is not limited by the posture of our bodies. He is the God who bends low to catch even the faintest breath of faith. When your knees can't bend, your heart still can. When your voice is weak, your spirit still speaks. And the Bible shows us time and again that God meets His children not only in grand sanctuaries or mountain heights, but in beds of weakness, caves of despair, and nights of sleepless surrender. Lying down does not distance you from the throne of grace. It can draw you closer, because lying down is the very image of rest, trust, and surrender. It is a posture that says, Lord, I cannot stand on my own, but I rest in you. So if you've ever felt guilty for praying flat on your back, too tired to rise, too broken to kneel, take courage. God is not measuring the holiness of your prayer by the position of your body. He is searching the posture of your heart. This is where we begin, with the assurance that your bed can become an altar, your weakness can become worship, and your lying down can become the very place heaven bends to listen. 1. The God who sees you where you are. When you lie down, whether in weariness, sickness, or simple rest, you are not hidden from the gaze of God. The Bible tells us plainly, "Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I lie down in the depths, you are there." Psalm 139:7-8. Those words are not poetry alone. They are a promise. They remind us that every place, every position, every posture of our lives is fully seen and fully known by the one who created us. There is something profoundly comforting about knowing that God sees you right where you are. Not only when you're standing tall in faith, not only when you're on your knees with hands lifted high, but also when you're stretched out in weakness, when your body won't rise and your spirit feels frail. His eyes are on you there too, filled with the same compassion and love that have never failed. Think of Hagar in the wilderness, cast out, alone, lying in despair. She thought her life and her child's life were finished, but God appeared and reminded her of this truth: "You are the God who sees me." Genesis 16:13. That same God sees you when you whisper prayers from your bed, prayers no one else hears, prayers too quiet for the world but loud in heaven's courts. The presence of God does not require a stage or a temple. He met Jacob in the wilderness while he slept with a stone for a pillow. He met Elijah under the broom tree when exhaustion had taken over. And he meets you, right where you are, when your heart reaches for him even as your body lies still. To be seen by God is to be known, and to be known is to be loved. So when you pray lying down, remember, you are not overlooked, you are not unseen. The Father who watches over sparrows watches over you. The God who numbers the stars has numbered your breaths. And even in your most hidden place, He draws near with a love that refuses to let go. 2. Biblical examples of lying down before God. When we open the pages of Scripture, we don't just find stories of people kneeling in prayer. We also see men and women lying down before God, speaking to Him in the stillness of their beds, or finding Him in moments of deep exhaustion. These examples remind us that prayer is not confined to a single posture, but flows through every season of life. David, the shepherd king, poured his heart out to God while lying awake at night. In Psalm 63:6 he says, "On my bed I remember you. I think of you through the watches of the night." For David, the bed was not only a place of rest, but also a sanctuary of communion with God. In Psalm 4:4 he writes, "When you are on your beds, search your hearts and be silent." Even in the most vulnerable posture, reclined, unguarded, David knew God was near, listening to the meditations of his heart. Think of Elijah, the prophet who stood boldly against kings and false prophets, yet found himself lying under a broom tree, weary and ready to give up. His prayer wasn't long or eloquent. It was simple and raw. "I have had enough, Lord." And what did God do? He didn't rebuke Elijah for praying in despair. Instead, he sent an angel with food and water, strengthening him for the journey ahead. Elijah's prayer while lying down became the doorway for God's tender care. And then there is Jesus himself. In Mark 4:38, we see him lying asleep in the boat during a raging storm. While the disciples panicked, Jesus rested in perfect trust, his body stretched out in peace. Though not a prayer in words, his lying down was a living picture of faith, a prayer without speech, declaring his confidence in the Father's care. These biblical moments tell us something powerful. Lying down does not disqualify your prayer. Instead, it can become the very canvas on which God paints his faithfulness. Whether it is David reflecting in the quiet, Elijah groaning in despair, or Jesus modeling trust in the storm, the message is the same. God meets his people where they are, even when they are lying flat. So tonight, when you find yourself on your bed, let the stories of these saints remind you, prayer does not wait for the perfect posture. It flows from a surrendered heart, no matter how weak or weary the body may be. 3. The posture of the heart matters more than the posture of the body. There is a reason the Bible repeats this truth again and again. God looks beyond appearances. He is not impressed by outward show, nor is he moved by the positions of our bodies alone. What matters most to him is the posture of the heart. We see this in 1 Samuel 16:7, when the Lord told Samuel, "Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." That single line shakes the foundation of ritual and performance. God is not swayed by how perfectly we kneel, how loudly we speak, or how long our prayers sound. He listens to the cry that comes from the depths of who we are, even when it is fragile, even when it feels incomplete. There are times when we kneel with strength, and there are times when we cannot kneel at all. Some prayers rise from hospital beds, some come through tears when words fail. Romans 8:26 assures us, "The Spirit helps us in our weakness. We do not know what we ought to pray for, but the Spirit himself intercedes for us with groans that words cannot express." This means that even when you are lying down, whispering nothing more than "Jesus, help me," heaven hears a thunderous prayer. The Pharisees loved to pray in public with elaborate gestures, but Jesus warned that their prayers were hollow because their hearts were far from God. In contrast, the tax collector in Luke 18 simply bowed his head and whispered, "God, have mercy on me, a sinner." And Jesus said it was that humble man, not the one who looked polished, who left justified. The posture of your heart is what reaches God. A heart bowed in surrender, even while your body is lying flat, is more powerful than 1,000 perfect words spoken without sincerity. He does not measure your holiness by whether you are standing, kneeling, or prostrate. He measures your faith, your trust, your honesty before him. So if you are lying down tonight, too weak to rise, do not feel less before God. The prayer that flows from your heart in that position can be as mighty as any shouted from a mountaintop. For when God listens, he does not lean toward the body, he leans toward the soul. 4. Lying down as a symbol of rest in God's promises. When you lie down to pray, you are stepping into one of the deepest symbols in Scripture, resting in the promises of God. Lying down is not only a physical act, it is a declaration of trust. It says, "I cannot hold myself up, but I believe you will hold me." Jesus gave an invitation that echoes through the ages. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Matthew 11:28. Notice he did not say, "Come strong." He did not demand, "Come standing tall." He called the weary, the heavy, the worn-out ones, and promised them rest. When you lie down in prayer, you embody that invitation. You bring your burdens to him and exchange your striving for his peace. The book of Hebrews speaks of this rest as something holy, something greater than sleep itself. There remains, then, a Sabbath rest for the people of God. Let us therefore make every effort to enter that rest. Hebrews 4:9-11. Resting in God's promises is not laziness, it is faith. It is choosing to stop wrestling in your own strength and to trust the finished work of Christ. Think of Jacob, lying down with a stone for a pillow in the wilderness. He drifted into sleep with nothing but uncertainty ahead of him. Yet in that place God opened the heavens and gave him a vision of a ladder stretching from earth to glory. Genesis 28:12-16. Lying down became the gateway to a promise that God would never leave him, never forsake him. In the same way, when you pray lying down, you are resting not just your body but your soul. You are saying, "Lord, I may not know what tomorrow holds, but I trust you. I rest in your word. I lean on your goodness. I find peace in your presence." There is power in stillness. There is worship in surrender. and there is victory in resting in the arms of God. Lying down prayer becomes a living picture of faith, a declaration that you no longer carry yourself because the everlasting arms of the Father carry you. So tonight, when you stretch out your weary body and whisper His name, let that posture remind you you are safe in His promises, and His rest is your inheritance. 5. Nighttime prayers, meeting God in the dark. Night has a way of magnifying everything. The quiet makes our thoughts louder, our fears sharper, our loneliness deeper. Yet it is in the stillness of the dark that some of the most intimate encounters with God are recorded in Scripture. The night is not empty, it is sacred, and when you pray lying down in the dark, you step into a long line of men and women who discovered God in the midnight hours. David knew this well. On my bed I remember you. I think of you through the watches of the night. Psalm 63:6. For him the darkness became a canvas for worship. While others slept, his heart was awake, reaching for God. In another psalm he declared, "By day the Lord directs His love, at night His song is with me, a prayer to the God of my life." Psalm 42:8. Even in the silence of night, prayer became a song that rose into heaven's courts. Jacob too met God at night. With nothing but a stone beneath his head, lying down in the wilderness, he dreamed of a ladder that bridged earth and heaven. Genesis 28:10-19. In the place of isolation and uncertainty, while lying flat in the dark, Jacob encountered the promise of God's presence. The night became holy ground. And consider Jesus in Gethsemane. Though he was not in bed, the weight of the night pressed heavily upon him. He fell to the ground in prayer, overwhelmed with sorrow, yet the Father met him there, sending strength for the path ahead. Luke 22:41-43. The deepest anguish of his heart was poured out under the cover of night, showing us that darkness is no barrier to God's light. When you lie down in the night and whisper your prayers, you are never alone. The darkness that feels heavy to you is light to Him. Psalm 139 reminds us, even the darkness will not be dark to you, the night will shine like the day. God does not retreat when the sun sets. He draws nearer still, surrounding you with His presence. So let your bed become an altar. Let your midnight whispers become hymns of trust. In the quiet, when no one else sees, God leans in close. He is the God of the day, and He is just as much the God of the night. And when you pray lying down in the dark, you may discover a sweetness with Him that daylight could never bring. 6. When weakness becomes worship. Weakness is something most of us try to hide. We want to appear strong, capable, in control. Yet the mystery of God's kingdom is that weakness can become the very place where His power shines the brightest. And when you pray lying down, when sickness, exhaustion, or sorrow has brought you low, that prayer can rise as one of the purest offerings of worship. The Apostle Paul knew this truth intimately. He cried out for God to remove his thorn, the struggle that left him feeling weak. But God's reply was not what Paul expected. "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." It was in his frailty that Paul discovered the strength of Christ. His brokenness became a platform for God's glory. Think of the bedridden believer who can barely whisper a word, yet still lifts a trembling heart toward heaven. That faint prayer carries weight beyond what the world can measure, because it is not powered by human strength but by surrender. The Lord does not despise it. He treasures it. In fact, Scripture tells us He gathers every tear in His bottle, Psalm 56:8. Nothing is wasted. Job, lying in ashes, covered in sores, still declared, "Though He slay me, yet will I hope in Him." Job 13:15. His body was broken, but his faith spoke louder than his pain. That is worship. Hannah wept bitterly before the Lord, her lips moving without sound, yet God heard her silent cry and answered her. 1 Samuel 1:22. That too was worship born from weakness. Sometimes the most powerful prayer is not shouted with strength but whispered through tears. Sometimes the most beautiful worship is not sung with perfect pitch but groaned through suffering. When you lie down in weakness and still choose to seek Him, you declare with your whole being, "God, you are greater than my pain. You are worthy, even here." And heaven responds. The God who stooped to feed Elijah under the broom tree, who lifted Peter when he sank in fear, who knelt to wash his disciples' feet, is the same God who bends near to you in your frailty. Your weakness does not repel Him, it draws Him closer. So do not despise the moments when you can only pray lying down, for in that posture, your weakness becomes worship, and your brokenness becomes a living testimony of His strength. The power of surrendered stillness. There is a kind of strength that comes from striving, from pushing forward with all you have. But there is another strength, deeper, quieter, eternal, that comes only when you surrender. When you lie down in stillness before God, you step into that strength. You discover the power of letting go. The psalmist records the words of God, "Be still, and know that I am God." Psalm 46:10. It is the soul's way of declaring, I do not have to hold everything together, because you are the one who holds the universe in place. Lying down can be more than rest for the body. It can be a holy surrender of the spirit. In battle, Israel was often reminded that victory did not come by sword or by might, but by the hand of the Lord. Sometimes their greatest weapon was not their strength but their silence, waiting for God to move. And so it is with prayer. There are moments when pouring out words is needed, but there are also moments when the holiest prayer is quiet trust, resting in His presence, believing He is already at work. Think of Jesus in the tomb, His body lying still, silent, at rest. From the outside it looked like defeat, yet in that surrendered stillness, the greatest victory of all was unfolding. Death was being conquered, sin was being shattered, and the world was about to witness resurrection life. Sometimes the stillness you despise is the soil where God plants His greatest miracles. When you pray lying down, allowing yourself to simply rest in God, you declare that He is enough. You surrender not only your strength but your need to control the outcome. You say with your posture, I yield to you, Lord. My striving ends here. My trust rests in you alone, and heaven honors that surrender. For the God who quiets storms, who whispers in the gentle breeze, who restores the soul in green pastures, delights in the still heart that waits on Him. In your silence He speaks. In your stillness He moves. In your surrender He shows Himself strong. So do not be afraid of the quiet moments, the lying down prayers, where words run out and only trust remains. That stillness is not empty, it is filled with the presence of the Almighty. And in that surrender, you will find a power greater than your own, the power of a God who fights for you, carries you, and holds you in perfect peace. Conclusion. There is a holy thread running through every moment we've walked together. From the God who sees you where you are, to the saints who prayed from their beds, to the truth that it is the heart's posture that matters most. We've seen how lying down can become a picture of rest in God's promises, how the night can be transformed into a meeting place with Him, how weakness itself can rise as worship, and how surrendered stillness can unleash heaven's power. When you put it all together, the message is simple yet profound. God is not waiting for you to reach a certain pose before He bends to listen. He does not demand perfection from your body to welcome the cries of your soul. He meets you in the wilderness like He met Jacob, feeds you in your exhaustion like He fed Elijah, sings over you in the night like He did for David, and covers you with grace in your weakness like He did for Paul. Your bed can become an altar, your tears can become prayers, your silence can become worship, and even when you are lying flat, too tired, too sick, too broken to rise, your spirit can soar into the very presence of God. Because the truth is, His presence is not confined to churches or mountaintops. It fills the dark corners of bedrooms, the lonely hospital rooms, the sleepless nights where only He hears your cry. So tonight, when you close your eyes and feel the weight of the world pressing down, do not believe the lie that your prayer is too small or too weak. Whisper His name, let your heart rest in His promises, surrender the battles you cannot fight, and trust that the God who never slumbers nor sleeps is bending low to hear you. The power of prayer is not found in whether you kneel, stand, or lie down. It is found in the God who listens, and that God, the one who split seas, who stilled storms, who conquered death, hears you even now. Rest in Him, trust Him, and let your lying down prayer become a song that rises to heaven, a song He delights to answer with love beyond measure.